called fallen away. Those of us who, for whatever reason, have left the church. Actually, we just sort of drifted away. Life became complicated. Work, kids, marriage, all the stuff of adulting. Church was just one more obligation on a growing list of obligations. Missing Mass once a week, it took some of the pressure off, and then it just became easier to miss Mass all the time.
Let's face it, we're only human. We're imperfect, flawed. How could we possibly be expected to perfectly serve a perfect God? And it's so much easier to allow lesser gods to replace the Lord of the Sabbath. If we're being really and truly honest here, that's the real reason we left.
There are those of us who left questioning. It's not that we don't have faith. We do. But there came a point where going to Mass was like being on automatic pilot. Everything was done by rote. The prayers, the readings, even the Eucharist. It wasn't fulfilling. The homilies were superficial. There was no depth to them. Just the tired old tropes we've heard year after year. There was no meaning to it, no inspiration, no connection.
We're disconnected. And trying to reconnect is like leaving a dark room and walking into sunlight. It's disorienting and uncomfortable. But that's the whole point of Jesus. He lights the way to God again, helps us to plug back in, to reconnect. He brings to us the absolute assurance to call the Lord of heaven and earth our Father.
Some of us have had something devastating happen in our lives. Illness, death, divorce, financial crisis. And our first reaction is anger. We have been taught to trust in God. We feel betrayed. How can a God who loves us so much allow such bad things to happen? You would think that we didn't pray. We prayed and we prayed and we prayed, but nothing. No answers. All of our problems came down crashing upon us. Yes, betrayed. That's a good word for it.
Jesus wasn't born in a palace. He didn't appear in the world as some radiant supernatural being. He came to us as an infant, born in the lowliest of circumstances, and human like us. He worked like us. He had fun like us. He loved like us, hurt like us, grieved like us. He even bled like us. And then he died like us. On the worst night of his life, the best friends who were with him fell asleep. A few hours later, another friend, as close to him as a brother, betrayed him. Within 24 hours, all but 2 of his friends abandoned him, and he lost every worldly thing he had ever owned. Then he lost his life. You can't get much more human than that. That's why I'm asking you to return to His words. Read the Gospels. Read them as if you're with Jesus having coffee. Read them as a conversation, and Jesus is sharing news and telling you stories. And at their core, these stories hold things you can totally relate to and understand, regardless of the anger or the boredom or the questions or doubts. Jesus wasn't born human to become God. St. John tells us the Christ always was and always will be. Jesus was God, born human, to bring us back to the Father. His death on the cross was human, all too human, but His resurrection is divine. And the Eucharist, the supper of the Lamb, is that crucified sacrifice, His body and blood. The Mass is the journey to that sacrifice. It's the how and the why it matters so much. Hang on to that. Tuck it into your heart, because when you come to understand that, it will transform you. The creature in the shadows emerges into the light and becomes a new creation in Christ. The reasons you've had to leave the church are many. They're human. But the reason to return is divine. Blessed are those called to the supper of the Lamb.
Hi, I wanted to share my story about how a cradle Catholic like myself came back to the church after drifting away for a while. As I grew older as an adult with kids and my marriage and my job, I started to find it easier not to go to Mass on Sundays and not do things with the church. I was really active in the church as a younger man, and there was something missing in my life, and I started to have some unhealthy habits physically and mentally and spiritually. And driving home one day, one of my neighbors had something in their yard. It was a literal sign. Catholics come home. And it really resonated with me. I knew at that time that that thing left missing in my life was Jesus, the church, the community of the church. I really needed that in my life. And I found out there was a Mass on Sunday nights that was, better for me to go to Mass, because that was always my excuse. I worked on the weekends, didn't have to go to Mass. Well, I went to Mass, and while I was in that first Mass after being gone for some time, I received a phone call, a message on my voicemail from my godfather, ironically enough. And he asked me, he said, "Do you still go to church?" And I said, ironically enough, I do again now, yeah. And his daughter had a baby not too long before that, and she wanted me to be Gemma's godfather. That was my second sign. That was God saying, "Come home." And I did, and I'm happy I made that choice.
Hi, my name is Shauna. I'm a parishioner at St. Joseph Catholic Church and would like to extend an invitation for all of you. You're welcome to come join us at Mass. And if you've been away for a while, please come home.
I believe that every person has their own path to their beliefs. However, there is one thing that will certainly help us all, and that is to fill our hearts with love. Remember that God is longing for your return.
Everybody, I'm Father Mike Kuchar, and wanting to welcome everybody to return to the church if you have been away for a time, regardless of how long that time span may have been. Your parish family is looking forward to welcoming you back this Ash Wednesday and throughout the Lenten and Easter journey and onward. I'm here to help you as the priest. I'm here to help you to re-enter into the sacramental life of the church. And it all starts with one footstep. And that step can be difficult sometimes for folks for a variety of reasons. That step back into the church. But I want to invite everybody to please make that step. We're waiting for you. And God is waiting for you. This Ash Wednesday, we remember on Ash Wednesday that alone we are a pile of ash. But with God we are a new creation. And that new creation can be you. God bless you.